Hello and welcome to the first episode of Bounty Thursday. We had a little bit of technical difficulty just earlier. This is first time for both myself and Stoke doing a live session on YouTube. But we're happy to be here. I have my wonderful co-host Stoke here.
Yeah,
And we want to talk about bug bounties.
that's what it's all about. This show is about Thursdays and bug bounties. So thank you for tuning in. Um, okay, so the thing that we did this thing called the Hacker's Couch a while back, and that just kind of turned into this show, right? Or let's roll it back to the beginning. It
Okay.
all started with you and me getting on Instagram Live and talking to each other and just realizing that that was a cool way to communicate.
Yeah.
And more and more people wanted to be a part of that. We answered a couple of questions and we realized that it was something missing in the Bounty community, something that took up, discussed news, tools, ways to upcoming events and that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
that's why we have Bounty Thursdays.
And I
It's
mean, the conversations we were having when it was just you and I was just like, we were just talking about hacking. And the whole idea was like,
yeah,
why are we doing this in private? Why aren't you and I getting online talking about the stuff that we are dealing with or, whatever it is that we're working on and let everybody else hear it? Like people enjoy hearing the struggles, the good parts of bug bounties, the ideas, the thought process and the whole entire thing, right? Um,
yes.
so here we are, and the next thing we did was we went and we started doing the Hacker Couch, which was in Las Vegas doing H1702's event.
Uh-huh.
And we just decided to get it together live because you and I never get to go live. It's always this, like we're doing this usually, like, hey
Yeah.
Stoke, how's it going? So yeah, I mean, I'm glad to we did the. I mean, it was really hard to pull off H1702 because we were both traveling. But
Yeah.
I think that was easier than doing this YouTube thing because we're both remote. One of us has to do the settings, one of us has to do other stuff and make sure everything turns out okay. Um,
There's going to be audio issues, there's going to be camera issues, there's going to be connection issues and everything that comes with it. But that doesn't remove the fun of doing something that's created by the community for the community. But scratch that and let's talk about something that we both are very passionate about, which is bug bounties. And
Absolutely.
and I want to talk about some news and or let's talk about what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about some new burp plugins that we think are cool,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to talk about some hot reports that are going on, and some things that people actually has automated. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about a little bit of challenge, and we're going to talk about what the programs are putting out. And you got a really cool AWS email lately that I want to know a lot more about. So let's kick it off. Welcome to Bounty Thursdays. Could you please tell me a little bit about the government VDP program that you stumbled upon during
Yeah.
last week?
So I'm gonna actually open this up and as I talk about it, so Jack Cable, big shout outs to him. He's been doing some really cool stuff, both on the government side and with his new studies. So if you don't know about Jack Cable, I don't know why you wouldn't know about him. You should definitely look into him. But Jack started this new repo on GitHub. It's github.com cableg/hack-your-government, and it lists as a entire list of every single government related bug bounty program around the world. So looking at this, obviously the US Department of Defense is the first one, and it links to HackerOne, and it talks about their bug bounty program underneath it when it varies when they do hack the army, hack the air force, and those kind of hack the government initiatives. And then it also lists as other bug bounty programs like TTS is a part of the government, which is on HackerOne, and it pays about 150 to 5,000. And then there is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The state of Delaware has a VDP. If you go to delaware.gov, Washington D.C. has its own program, which is a VDP. Obviously, the Dutch government has its own huge bug bounty program where they pay up to 300 euros. You have to go to
Mhm.
ncsc.nl. And then there's also the Netherlands government, central government, and United Kingdom's NCSC, which is all VDPs. But it's very, very cool because looking at this list for me, I didn't even know half of these existed. Like I didn't even
No,
know
for sure.
some of the Washington D.C., State of Delaware, and the Center for Medicare. I didn't know those. Did you
Yeah.
know those existed at all?
I had no idea. And just thinking back, when we were starting out hacking, thinking about hacking the government was kind of off the charts. And now
Sketchy.
we're allowed to look at stuff that I know you've been signing in, or maybe you haven't, because maybe that's a very European thing. But we have some kind of socialistic healthcare system where most of it, most of the things are kind of or in a way free for you, and so you'll enter this portal and there's PII information and everything in there, and you think like, oh, maybe these guys fucked this up. And now you're kind of allowed to poke at it, and if you find something that's going to be something that you're going to be able to add to your experience bank pawning, and you can help fix fix the internet a bit. So I think this is a really cool thing. I'm happy that
Yeah, I
that.
mean, hacking any government site sounds really cool. Like just the fact that you can hack the U.S. government, anything that's owned by the DoD is on their bug bounty program, right? And like, it is
Yeah,
insane to think about like popping a shell on DoD. Like Alyssa is doing a lot of work for the like on the DoD program, and she is killing it. And imagine this was like
yeah,
5 years ago. If you were doing the same stuff, you'd probably get in a lot of trouble, right?
yep. No, absolutely. You just be able to say that. Do you know what I did? No, I hacked the Marines. It's a really really cool
And
thing
you
to
got
do.
paid for it. Like you're saying that you hacked the Marines and got a bounty from the U.S. government for hacking their website is the craziest thing that I didn't dream about 10 years ago, dude.
Do you know if NASA has a bug bounty program?
They
Otherwise,
should.
I hacked the spacecraft. Imagine how cool that would be, right? And those guys pay a lot of money to perfect their code. And that just reminds me of the whole thing that we talked about earlier. The amount of money NASA pays to get so little amount of bugs in their code. I can't remember the number, but it's in a huge amount. It's like
Right.
$1,000 a line of code or something to be able to get it that perfect, because you can't have systems that fails. We're not talking about vulnerabilities here. We're talking about bugs in general. But then again, it might just be one of those bugs that is a vulnerability. And hey, we don't want anyone to pop an XSS in a spacecraft, right?
I mean, when I was in Vegas and I was talking to Spectres about his wish list, and he said like one of the things in his wish list is to hack into those missiles, the satellite missile things in the air, and it's like, hey, imagine like the Tesla, not Tesla's project, but Project X. He's like, imagine if I get to hack into one of those and make it do some stuff it's not supposed to. And I just sat there. I'm like, dude, you're just thinking way into the future. Dude was in like 2030 while we're in 2019 right now.
Yes,
But it's
I
crazy.
still very very cool, very very very, very cool. Um, so we talked about VDPs. Um, I want to talk about some cool tools that I stumbled upon lately. Do you mind me talking about that?
About the what thing?
I want to talk about StaticFlow, Tanner Barnes,
Oh yeah.
Burp Collaborator, which is a real cool tool, and I want to talk about Fisher's Burp Scope monitor. And but to get there, I kind of need your help. Is there any way that you can pop up on the screen the links to their GitHub repos?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me pull up while we talk. Let me pull up. I'm trying to look Tanner's GitHub report real quickly. Static Flow.
Perfect,
While
perfect.
we
I have it in the show notes if you need to find it. So anyway, I got the utter pleasure of stumbling into Tanner Barnes over at DEF CON, or actually it began a couple of weeks before. He sent me a message and said, "I have something that I think you're gonna like." I'm like, I'm not really sure. You get a lot of DMs, but I met up with the guy anyway. And what he shows me changed the perceptions of for me on team collaboration when it comes to Burp. Because what it is it's a little bit of a server that you can spin up. It's written in Go, and it's more like a chat API. So all you need is a tiny VPS. You spin up this Burp Collaborator, or you can run it on your computer. It doesn't really matter. Right, it requires Go though, and Then you get a little bit of a server code that you type
Okay.
in. You download the Burp plugin. That's going to show up inside your Burp, where you can join this server with a username and a passphrase and some other stuff. And the minute you join, all the traffic that you send through your burp is going to end up in the other person's burp too. So if you have a couple of people that are together and collaborating, and they are both passively browsing your website, it's going to populate both targets, right? And if I'm working on a project, I found an SSRF and I can't pop it, and I'm like, Ben, I can't figure this one out. Do you mind helping me out? Oh, I'm here. Yeah, I would just have to right click, send to Burp Collaborator, or send to the other user, and it's going to populate your repeater directly, which is amazing. So you'll fiddle around with it, find the thing that makes it pop, and you send it back to me, share it to, pew, and it's going to end up in my repeater. No more just getting lost in sending things in Slack channels, or trying to export a burp history, and then or a stat file, send it over and import it. It's a great tool when it comes to sharing collaboration. And for us as creators, I know you're going to do CTFs on Thursday. A really cool thing for you would be to spin up a server, set the scope that's going to be the CTF, and you'll set that for anyone that joins the channel. So they'll download the plugin, join your server, say fetch scope, and in real time they're going to see the request that you send through, and you're going to be able to, and they are able to just right click and try it out in their own repeaters. So it's more like a follow along thing, and you blew my mind the potential with this, and I'm currently trying. Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. You don't have any audio, Ben. There's no audio on you.
Wow. Sorry, I don't know what. I think I got it fixed now. But yeah, I mean, it goes beyond just the bug bounty thing, right? Like it's beyond CTF and bug bounty.
Do you
Imagine.
have audio
Yep, I have
still?
audio. Audio should be on.
Okay.
But it should be.
Okay.
It's beyond bug bounty. It's like imagine the live hacking events. Let's say you find a bug, or even outside of live hacking events. Imagine you find a bug, and the engineers on the other side of this program say, "Hey, I can't reproduce this problem." You just have to go and say, "Hey, can I share it with you on Burp?" and just share it with
Mhm.
them. And that just makes the entire process easier. You don't have to worry about any limitations anymore, right?
Cool. I'm just madly in love with the tool and the potential with it. And I talked to him today because I found a bug in it, and he helped me figure it out. And there is so much potential coming into this extension that it's blowing my mind in good ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
I'm
think
just
it's definitely a good start. It's absolute. I haven't given it a try yet. I have to clone this and play with it a little bit. But from what I talked to him in Vegas, and from what you have told me and reading the documentation here, it looks. The thing is, like, why didn't we think about this months and years ago,
yes.
right? Like,
I don't know. Maybe this is just on the verge of potentially just bumping into Burp's Teams server. I'm not sure, but then again, it's for me it's mind blowing the way it works, and the possibilities for us to collaborate. And I know. I saw some pre-teases, something coming up, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's a potentially really cool thing, because if I'm working on a request and I want to send it to you, or I'm doing the write-up, right? and I have all these requests in there. So I'm working on Medium, and I'm typing my stuff in, and I got the screenshot underneath it. I'm going to put this special link in there, and that link is a base 64 encoded version of the original request. So if you're reading my blog post, you can just click the link, and it's going to populate your repeater straight away, so you can fiddle around and see it in Burp. It's a way to really enrich the content for us that are creators. I think
Yeah,
it's amazing.
absolutely. You did have another tool. I'm going to pull up what just got released by Fisher.
Yes, and
Let's talk
it's
about this
all.
one.
If any one of you out there are using spreadsheets to check off the endpoints that you had tested, or you're trying to have a check methodology to make sure that you're not missing anything out, this is the tool for you. It's a scope monitor, or more like a coverage tracker that helps you, do things smoothly so you don't miss things. So it actually works that it kind of mimics your burp history. So when you're browsing the site, it's going to populate this with requests going through. And as soon as you take one of those requests, let's say you're testing out APIs, right? You have a bunch of different APIs. And you're going to test them one by one. You right click it inside the scope monitor, because it's called scope monitor.
Yep.
Send it to repeater, and automatically it's going to check it off. It's going to be turn green, and you know that you tried it. Then you go through all those endpoints that you tried, and after spending a few hours on the site, you tested about most of it. You will just right click on it in the settings and go down and say show only new requests coming in. And you can browse through the sites, and you find that, that pesky little endpoint that is coming up once.
Yeah.
Bang, there it is. And we usually never see it because it's getting flooded through all the garbage that just flows through. That's just, dang, you're just going to end up in your scope monitor, and wow, I didn't test this one. And that's going to be your golden goose, right?
Yeah, I
It,
mean, it's
it's a cool tool.
yeah, it's I haven't tried these. My burp game is very very weak. I don't really do a lot of burp stuff, but this looks really really good just because I track my endpoints through the sitemap area for the target, but I don't think that works the way it should. You know.
No. And you can just combine those two. You're able to, let's say we are working something together as well, and you can export the stage file. You can play around with it. I just think that is a really really cool way to funnel your workflow, because in the beginning you have all this stuff going on. Let's say that you're testing for IDORs, and you want to make sure that you tested everything. You just funnel it down to have those small tiny in the end that that you haven't tested for. It's a methodology enhancer, or a way to guide you to not miss anything. And I like that. I think it's really cool stuff.
It's a good way of organizing data for sure. Very smart. When I see these things, I go, why didn't we think about these a year ago? Why didn't we not create these things a while ago? It's awesome
I
stuff.
have no idea. I have no
Very very
idea.
cool
So
stuff. Um,
I also have this idea, this other thing that I want to talk about, and that's an enhancement of things that you kind of need to start to look into. You are using Burp Collaborator, right?
Absolutely.
Not, maybe not as frequent as you'd use your repeater
So
tab, but
my beef is I like to try to interrupt you. I like the idea of using the Burp Collaborator, but I just have my own
yeah.
server that does different things, just because it's just easier. And I hear a lot of people say that some companies block Burp Collaborator if you're using theirs directly
Uh-huh.
without using yours. But yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely crazy tool. It has detected a couple of things for me that it picked up random stuff for me when I was like, oh, I missed this request, and it's hit
Yeah,
the Burp
right.
Collaborator.
It's a cool thing for making sure that whatever you're testing for SSRs or whatever. But what's happening right now is that more and more companies are getting a little bit worried about outgoing ingress traffic heading Portswigger's main server for the Burp Collaborator. And even if you're doing a red team engagement, they might just not allow you to use the Burp Collaborator as it is stock out of Burp Pro. So what you need to do is that you need to host and spin up your own Burp Collaborator.
Yep.
And that way you also know what kind of traffic you're sending through it. And it's really, really cool. And it's dogs everywhere.
My
And
dogs are going crazy, man. I don't know
uh,
why.
I, I hear you. That's how it goes. They can sense the awesomeness of life. I don't know. But Jarmo Putzi from Team Rot has written this awesome guide that is going to walk you through step by step how to set this up. Anything from spinning up your AWS VPS to buying your domain, making sure your name servers are configured correctly. And he even built this script that automatically gets you a Let's Encrypt certificate and renews it every day for you. So you can use your own Burp Collaborator that you control on a free tier service in AWS. It's a game changer. And if you're not doing it right now, this is something that you need to look into
And the
because you
whole
can have your own.
this write up also has like everything you need. Like I'm looking at this. This is a very long tutorial. Like it tells you from like zero to hero pretty much of
Yeah,
how to set everything up. I'll
yeah.
also link this in the chat while you explain a little bit more.
Do that because I'm thinking I'm doing a full walkthrough on it. Just doing it step by step and doing a video. So if you're one of those people that don't really like to read things and want to hear me walk you through it, I'm going to do that because I think it's a really cool thing to do. And hats off to Team Rot and Putsy and the Finnish guys. You guys rock. I got their sticker on my computer. They made me put it on during the hacker couch, if you remember.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I'm real excited about that. It's a cool tool. It could be a middle way if you want to use, or maybe you can use this in a combination with your own by9 server. So have your own hosted DNS, so if you're putting a payload out there that is going to end up in your system, and you have that under control.
Yeah,
I
and I
like.
think like having your own instance and being completely in charge of it makes a huge difference. So I'm gonna actually give this a try. I think I like the self-hosted Burp Collaborator thing a lot more than having Burp's version of it. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
give it a try and see how it works
you
because it's
need to have a pro version though. It doesn't
yeah
work
yeah
with community, so you
yeah,
need
yeah,
to have a
absolutely
pro. But if you got that, it's a no-brainer. If you're running a
yeah
small shop or a big shop, if you're doing pen testing or bounties, this is for your own security.
yeah.
Make sure that you limit access to yourself on the AWS and go crazy with it. It's a great tool. Fun.
Speaking of great things, and
Hmm.
talking about great research, there is some very very cool stuff that came out of Black Hat that we
Oh
should.
yeah.
I'm gonna pull this up. Big massive shout outs to Orange
Oh
Side.
yeah.
So he actually found a way of pre-auth RCing the VPN service providers, and besides doing a on-auth RC, I think he also had a way of he had some like local file read with path traversal of some sort.
Oh yeah, yeah. Full file read. You can get etc password with one
Yeah,
line.
and it's crazy because like I think a lot of people rely on this. When I was on Twitter, I saw a lot of people just sharing their. They were seeing a lot of like scans being happening for the Pulse
Oh yeah.
VPN of just people
Yep.
masking the entire web to find these. I spent a
Yeah.
couple of hours fingerprinting it. The fingerprint isn't that hard. I think if you fingerprint based on the file extension and the header, you should be able to get a good, accurate baseline of what Pulse VPN looks like. But I didn't find much.
It's super easy to find. It's like easily 4,000 publicly open on Shodan if you just go through it.
Right.
You just search for the out string and it's going to give you in the response of the header and the request is there. It's super easy to find, but it's terrible when it hits because the thing is that you're able to steal the session cookies more or less. So you're able to just refresh and log straight into the admin panel. And when you're inside the admin panel, what you can do is that you can take any kind of payload that you want and say this file needs to be run
Yeah.
upon the launch of the VPN service. So even though you get an RCE and you get access to stuff, if an evil actor or somebody else wants to pop a shell on your computer, let's say a Cobalt Strike
Cola
Beacon,
Strike. Yep.
all they need to do is to change the VPN, and everyone that uses it, boom, it's going to fire off a shell.
I mean, from a bug bounties perspective, for me, like not being able to escalate that, ending up on the corporate VPN alone is a huge deal, right? Like, you would
Mm-hmm.
pretty much have access to a lot of internal stuff, and if this company's internal um, infrastructure isn't completely locked down, then it's kind of game over beyond just owning other clients. And I think I see on his profile he has a YouTube link. Sorry, not YouTube. An Uber bounty, and I think he talked about this in his talk. I'm gonna assume this is related to the same thing as this potential pre-auth RCE on Twitter VPN, because the timeline kind of matches. And I think at some point he said something somewhere about Uber. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but the timeline looks very suspect. But very, very cool work from Orange with this. It's just mind blowing. I'm sure he's gonna have more stuff for next year's research at Black Hat.
And it was Alicia and another really cool researcher that created. It's up over at Exploit DB as well. I need to find it. I want to make sure that I got that right, because I want to make a proper shout out for it, because even though the research come out, the POC, and they even released a Metasploit module for it, which was super cool. I'm going to make sure that we get the right people, the right credit in the show notes of this.
Yeah, and when we post a video, we'll definitely include the links to all these different tools and all these write-ups and exploits. So if you don't see them right now, you can't find them. We'll definitely put them in the description of the video when this video.
Credits due where credits due.
Definitely.
So, and that brings us over to the next part, and it's automation. More and more people inside the bounty game are relying on pretty heavy and cool automation, and it's actually not that hard to create.
Yep.
If you create some kind of like scope monitor, and today with AMAS or something else, you'll look for diffs between web pages and requests. You can even look for wayback URLs and see if things are happening. But if you're doing something today and you're not doing some kind of automation, it doesn't have to be fully automated, but some kind of like semi-automated, you need to do it. If you're not doing it today, you need to start doing it. And everything from just having a VPS populating your own text files that you can grep through, or even just writing a web front end for it, it's going to help you massively.
Yeah.
Because when these golden goose bugs come out, if you have mined the internet, you have a funnel.
Yep.
And that funnel, it's going to be easy for you to just, once again, look through, oh, I got these things here, bum, 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 and you're able to submit it in. Because if I'm not mistaken, there were hundreds of reports just hammering down on HackerOne when the Pulse POC came out, because people automated it, sent it in. And it could be a nice piece of money if you get an RCE in.
Yep. And I mean, the thing is, like, when I do the recon streams, one of the rules that I came up with is if I run a command, 3 to 5 times in the last 30 minutes, it's got to become automated. Like, there's got to be a way where I can at least... Automation doesn't have to be a script where you run it and it does stuff to you. It could just be an alias, right? You can make a alias in your bash that does these commands for you, that you don't have to write them up every single time. And it's beyond automation when things like this come up. It's good data. If you're collecting the right type of data on your targets, it's beyond just subdomain names of, some people may not call it VPN. They may call it secure. They may call it internal. They may call it something different, right?
Yes.
Having good data is a huge part of automation, I think, because, like, for example, the best example for me personally is when the Jira or Atlassian products have a POC drop, an SSRF, for example, a couple of years ago. If I didn't have the data, I couldn't find any of those. And I immediately was able to automate that by just gripping through my data and looking for those strings that I've collected in the past. And the example was Confluence's server-side template injection. Shout outs to OX Coffee. He hit me up, was like, hey man, I have this POC. Let's go through some data and see what we find. And immediately off the bat, we got 5 or 6 of them within an hour, and 3 of those immediately paid out. And I want to say we made a couple of $1,000s from it just because we had the previous data. And I have gigs of it. I've kept data from 2 years ago for some reason up until now, just because of the fact that you never know you never know when you're going to need that data, right? Like,
no, and the window is this big. The window is this big when the race begins, and that's where bug bounties come in play. Oh. It's this big. You got a few hours to give it all you got. Yeah. Whatever meeting you have, whatever people you need to take care of, or whatever things are going on, make sure somebody gets your kids from school, because you need to go home and run those if you want to be in the golden goose race. It's a very that's bounties for you. That it is quick and responsive when things drop.
it's not. I mean, it's kind of like a race, right? You want to make sure that you have done your homework previously without expecting these POCs to drop. So when they
Yeah,
do drop, you can just you know exactly what to look for, in cases
for
like
sure.
this. Um, but yeah, very cool stuff. I think automation. A lot of the hackers who are doing automation, like the Nafis, the Shubs, the Franz Rosens, and Matthias, and all the other hackers. I think they all have some sort of an automated tool that helps them dig through their previous data and also collect data as fast as they can when the new POC drops.
Hmm.
It's a big challenge to do that, but I think the challenge is worth the investment that you do.
Cool. So let's talk about challenges.
Speaking of challenges,
Yeah, that's how it works. But it's it's one guy in this community that is known for doing like really weird reporting and finding weird bugs, and his name is Inti, and he's been playing around with doing some challenges over
okay.
at Integrity. He's currently got, as we speak right now, until the 31st, there's an XSS challenge going on, and I love that kind of thing. The gamification that comes into our community, right?
Yeah.
When people are creating stuff and you can play around with it. In this case, you have the chance to win a 1 year Burp Pro license and get some private invites. HackerOne releases this HackerOne CTFs every now and then where there's small things going on and you can win like maybe up to 5 private invites. I love it when this happens. It creates it gives us a way to just let our hair out, you just take a step back and see if we can pop it, and people usually do, and it ends up in getting a couple of write-ups and that kind of stuff.
And
I think it's really, really
I think Ed Overflow solved this like within maybe an hour or two of the challenge going up. I could be
an
very
hour.
wrong. I think it was maybe like it was some like crazy quick like resolution, and everyone was like, "Well, if anyone's gonna find this thing, it's gotta be at Overflow." I'm gonna pull up the tweet right now and see if I can see the responses live as we speak. But I'm pretty sure I saw within a few minutes, or not, sorry, within an hour or so, that Ed Overflow had already solved this, which is pretty crazy. And but I mean, Ed is a super talented hacker. Shout outs to him.
Yep.
Um,
Wow. Cool. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
excited about that. Um, time flies. Let's talk about the AWS email that you got.
Yeah. So I didn't personally receive this email. In Bug Bounty Forum, an anonymous hacker that should not be named dropped a screenshot of an email that was sent out to AWS customers, which is I think it's really good because the entire idea about the email was, hey, we saw similar activities that was spoken about during this talk on your account, and we want to make sure you're aware of it, that you're not relying on third-party tools that could get popped, which could give access to your infrastructure. I think AWS is doing a very, very good job of educating their customers and sending the right type of alerts at the right times and making sure they address all those concerns, which is absolutely awesome because they own like a good portion of the internet. So seeing that email for me it was a big deal because like even though they said a researcher without saying my name, but seeing AWS hinting at my talk at DEF CON was really really cool. But we tried to not make our talk about AWS or any cloud service provider when we did our talk because the goal wasn't to, scare the public. It was to let them know, hey, it's cool that you have these apps on the cloud. It's great that you're not redeveloping all these softwares, but you're using somebody else's library and you're not making sure that your user input going through this third-party app is being sanitized before it's being shown. So if you get an XSS, for example, in your app and you let me export that through your third-party PDF generator, things are going to get messy. And I think AWS is flagging those internally with all their customers, which is really, really cool to see. I hope more companies do that kind of things to protect their customers, to be honest.
Yes, and it's a no-brainer, really. And but hey, thanks for sharing the knowledge. And you and Cody did a great work on your Sunday SSRF there too.
Yeah, there's going to be
Um,
multiple videos coming out of the SSRF thing. I think one's going to be coming out of some particular YouTuber's channel that's on the stream with me, hopefully, sometime soon. We'll work on that, we talked. And
oh,
There's going to be another. I'm going to also do a presentation around my entire SSRF talk that I did at DEF CON in a few months because I'm still adding more stuff to this talk as we go. I have a
Yes.
couple of new POCs that I had to wait for approval to be included. I found some really, really cool stuff this past week that I want to include in there. Shout out to Corbin, aka CDL, for his XXC thing that he did. I'm going to include all those in an entire presentation and also do a video on it. So some beginners have some material to look at and understand SSRF, and then fast forward to non-beginners who are past the beginner stage. They're finding cool vulns, but they want to be able to escalate things further, or also identify them faster. So I'm very excited to
Yeah.
put out those videos. It's going to be a challenge to get it out, but one day we'll have them out.
Oh, that's so cool. And if you're a beginner or if you're intermediate and you want to play around with your skills when it comes to SSRF and XSEs or XML entities and that kind of stuff, Portswigger on their, I think it's like Web Academy, has some really cool tests that you can play around with. I know Bugcrowd recently just dropped some new stuff on the Bugcrowd University. There's a lot of new stuff coming out. I'm going to be focusing really, really hard when it comes to XXEs and trying to get as much content as possible when it comes to that out. And yeah, the community is really just stepping up its game. SSRF and XXEs are the new RCEs. It's really high critical bugs that's fairly easy to find. And it's harder to exploit them because more and more companies are locking down egress traffic. So you need to be good at obfuscation and understanding how do you go around the infrastructure.
And
But if you figure that out, it's pretty cool stuff.
I think there's a difference between finding SSRF and being actually fully able to exploit it, right? Those are two different things.
Uh-huh.
Like the biggest challenge for me was you're blindly pretty much attacking someone's infrastructure. So for me, one of the reasons why I did this, every year after DEF CON, I dedicate the next year to research. So from last DEF CON to this previous DEF CON we went to, I focus on SSRF. And honestly, since I've been doing that, I learned a ton of stuff, not just around SSRF and what SSRF does or how to exploit it, but just things that I never thought about, like ways to, like the DNS rebinding thing that Cody escalated my SSRF on Snapchat with was like mind blown.
Yeah.
And we thought like this was not going to be exploitable, and then like last minute we're like, oh, let's give this thing a try, and it worked. So I think it was a really good challenge for me to learn more. And you're absolutely right. SSRs are becoming more common, and that's just because every app is becoming bigger and bigger, adding new features. But just my whole thing is if you're gonna use third-party apps, make sure you're integrating it right, and user input is always going to be the hardest to filter through.
Absolutely. And if you want to play around with these kind of DNS rebinding attacks, if you're not using Dakin's tool, there's also DNS Chef and some other tools out there that you can play around with. DNS rebinding attacks are cool. And if you don't know how they work, you kind of need to learn how they work because they are fun and it's a way to trick the system. You're playing around with caches, you're playing around with requests and that kind of stuff. And that's not something you can automate. It's very much understanding what you do at the right time. Timed issues. I like those.
So let's talk about our last topic. We have a few more minutes left. This is something that I have been personally dealing with for the past month and a half, which is not finding vulnerabilities at all. So I went through this thing for...
The drought.
Yeah, I went through it almost a month. And I don't think it wasn't that I wasn't finding enough vulns. It was just that I didn't feel motivated. Coming back from H1702 and seeing all these, $2 million in bounties almost getting paid out. And just coming, it was hard to focus, one, right? It was really, really hard to focus coming back from that trip. And two, it was just like, didn't feel like the hacking. I think it was just a burnout, and I just don't realize it until afterwards. I never ever identify my burnouts until I get over it, and then I start thinking like, oh, I was burning out on this. I went a little too hard. And right now, like yesterday, the way I got over it was I told myself, Tuesday night, I'm going to sit my butt down and I'm going to hack until I find a vuln. I don't care if it's a duplicate. I don't care if it's informative, if it turns out to be informative. I just want to find one vuln. And that's all it was. I literally sat down till 1 o'clock, from 8 p.m. to 1 o'clock. And I finally found some vulns, and it just gave me back up to feeling myself again, like being going back into my regular routine and my normal mentality of, okay, I don't have to look for a new career. I don't have to change careers because I can't find a vulnerability, right?
No. But then again, systems are being more and more hardened.
Yeah.
Bug bounties aren't easy. It's not something that you just jump in and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to try to see how this works out. To get those big payouts and those really weird kind of things and challenges, you need to have a lot of outside the box thinking. It's not running a Nessus scan and just blindly just hoping things work. I think it was Cody that mentioned this in a tweet the other day, that it used to be very easy like 5 years ago. You can just, there's going to be XSS over here and something else over there. But the game has changed. Systems are being more and more better verified. Yahoo is a typical example of that. You can just go through that. I know Franz talked to you about it as well.
Yeah.
Things have changed. There's small, tiny things, but the landscape is changing to be more hardened and better secured, which is why we do this.
I mean, there's more education, right? Like with all these new bug bounty write-ups coming out, there's more material for developers and companies behind these bug bounty programs to educate the developers, right? But also, like, I agree with Cody's. I agree with the tweet. It's harder because there's more people out doing this. But if you think about it, there's also more companies coming out and do this. There's no more shortage of a program. When I was first starting 5 years ago, dude, it was Yahoo, Google, Facebook, Coinbase. Coinbase came out months later. But there wasn't any other programs that was paying. So, and there was, there was like 100 to 200 hackers that were hacking on him already. And, Bugcrowd was coming out with some programs, and HackerOne was coming out with some more programs. But the number of hackers were less. That is absolutely true. But the number of programs were shortened too. And the resources that were available to hackers wasn't as much as it is today. There's a lot more resources nowadays about bug bounties than it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I would have to directly ask for help from somebody that knew about XXC, like Hexstream, I think is his name. I reached out to him a couple of times, and he helped me out 4 or 5 years ago about XXCs. Versus now, all I gotta do is go into Google, type in XXC, put in bug bounty next to it, and there's a heap of stuff that comes up.
Cool. Also, HackerOne did release their hackers report today, right?
They did.
It's a great picture if you look at the tweet, though.
Let's actually, I want to look at it. I want to show what's on there for the folks that haven't seen it.
I
think
amazing.
they will recognize a few faces. So let's just slowly scroll. Look at this gorgeous face. You are, dude, that is absolutely rad.
That's a great picture. I cannot deny it. And
this is like background material, dude. I would put that as a background on my computer if I were you. Or maybe the girlfriend or wife could do it, man.
You can have it. I'm going to make sure that he's going to be releasing some kind of high-des wide format, so you can have stuck on the back of your computer anytime you want.
Hey, I have one right here, man. I have one right here on the computer. It's right here. It's this gorgeous face right here.
That's where it should be, always have stickers of stick on your computer. That's cool. Yeah. But what I want to say about the report is that the cool thing with that is that you can read in and you can see that there's an immense amount of people signing up right now. But there's also a lot of more programs coming into play, like you said. And it's like a smorgasbord of awesomeness if you want to hack around. In the beginning, we talked about the government's VDPs, right? More and more and more programs are coming in. Yes, competition is getting fierce. So if you automate and you find a bug class that you like and you go deep, it's going to be, you're going to be very profitable. But if you're waiting for somebody to just solve your things, or if you're just going to copy paste your XSS payloads, those days are sadly kind of moving away. You need to step up your game if you want to.
4 words, my friend. Step your game up. Do it. Don't do it tomorrow. Don't do it tomorrow. Don't do it next week. Do it today. If you're going to step up your game, make it a point to start today. It's not going to work if you say tomorrow.
That's true.
One last thing I want to talk about. We are almost at time. There's one last bit of information that I pulled up earlier that I want to talk about. This is an announcement that HackerOne just made today.
Cool.
$1 million hackers. The first generation of millionaires that have made $1 million from bug bounties. Which is mind-blowing to me to see that people have made $1 million from bug bounties.
Yeah. And yeah. It's mind-boggling, and I like it. It shows that the potential is there. And these guys they've been around for a while. None of them are freshlings. They are very, very good hackers that's been doing this for a long time. I think Doggy G's got 15 years on Yahoo. That's some data mining going on there. So yeah. So I would definitely say that he's a master of that. Try to hack the way he works on his programs. It's really cool. So hats off for this group of amazing hackers.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious to see who's next. I can
tell you that much. It's not going to be me. I'm way far away from $1 million. I'm not even close. So
one day, who knows? And it depends on what your goal plan is, though.
Yeah. Well, we are at 12:30. This is time for us to part ways for the day. This is the end of the first episode of Bounty Thursdays. Again, I have Stoke. If you don't follow him for some god-awful reason already, look him up on Twitter. I'm also Ben, a.k.a. Nahamsek. Any last words, my friend?
Hacker's going to hack, creator's going to create.
I got 4 words. Step your game up. That is the word for the week. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be live again next week. We'll post our schedule soon on Twitter. If you like these videos, like and subscribe down below somewhere. Over here, over there somewhere.
It's going to be awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.
See you, man.